Stasi, and today I am going to be tier ranking every book that I read in 2019. Since I did stop making videos in October, there are a lot of books that I've never had a chance to speak about or express how I felt about them, so I think this will be a good way of doing that. And I've also been seeing a lot of these tier ranking videos recently, and I've been really enjoying watching them, so I wanted to do my own. So that's what we're going to do, and you're going to be able to see what I read and what I thought of things. There are probably some unpopular opinions in there, so let's just get started.
We are going to do this with laptop webcam quality, 'cause it's just going to be the easiest way to do it, I think. But just quickly about my tiers, obviously the first four there are pretty straightforward. This top tier actually harkens back to a bit of a inside joke from way back when I was in school, where I don't even remember how it came about, but we started saying things were totally Anastasia. If they were, like better than amazing, they were really good kind of things. They were the best. My full first name is Anastasia. Stasi is a nickname from that. So that's kind of where that came from. I think it was mostly a bit of a joke, but I thought it would be appropriate here since anything that gets up there is obviously going to be things that I personally, as the reading Anastasia, really enjoy. So I have over 50 books here that I read last year, so we're just going to get right on into it. Okay, so here I have The Mime Order, which is the second book in a series, the first one being The Bone Season, and I don't remember anything about this book, so I don't feel like I can put it anywhere but okay. I definitely didn't think it was bad, but I don't remember anything. Clean Sweeps by Alona Andrews. This is the second thing I've read from them, the first being that the trilogy that has the dodgy covers. I don't remember what it's called. But again, the thing with this one is it was quite a short series, quite a short book, and so I'm hesitant to put it anywhere above good because it was so short and it was hard to. It would definitely be somewhere here. I think for now we'll put on good. The Ask and the Answer I'll put on good. Another second book in a series. The first one being The Knife of Never Letting Go. I actually really wasn't enjoying it because I was listening to the audiobook, but then as soon as I started reading it physically, I was enjoying it a lot more. But again, I have that mixed experience with it, so we'll put it there. Illuminae. I think I can only put it on okay because the only part of that book I liked was that little bit at the end that felt like a space horror. The rest of it and the format of it didn't work for me. Lady Midnight, I'll put on good. I think I enjoyed it, but I'm not as attached or interested in these characters as much as I was in like previous Shadowhunters books. Twilight. Last year I reread Twilight for the first time since reading it as a teenager, and it has made me question everything about my 14-year-old self, basically. The Wicked and the Divine is a graphic novel. The art is beautiful, but this volume, the story was kind of just okay. But I think I have to put it in okay. I can't base it just on the art because I love the art in it so much. Spellslinger. Ooh, I don't know whether it can quite go up the top. I said recently how much I loved these audiobooks. I really enjoyed this fantasy story, but also the audiobooks made it for me. The narrator was so good. I can't remember his name, but he did all the different voices and everything. Oh, I don't know if I can quite put it up the top. I think I'd have to go back to it, but I did really enjoy that. Cruel Prince Holly Black. Oh, you know what? I'm putting it in bad. I'm sorry. Wicked King, though, it can go into good. Okay. No, not good. Okay. Uh, yeah, I didn't love this series. Putting it in bad seems like it's a bit harsh. I didn't like hate that book, but I didn't think it was necessarily good either. I don't know. I'm leaving it like that for now. Scythe, I'm putting it in good. It was interesting. Again, though, I listened to this on audiobook. Maybe I would have enjoyed it more if I hadn't. I found it really interesting, the whole world and everything, but there were some things that I didn't love as much, like character relationships and stuff. Kings of the Wild! Kings of the Wild. Favorite thing I read last year. I've talked about this already, and it is a great adult fantasy series that has D&D and rock and roll vibes, so we love it. Carry on! Carry On is a book I almost DNF'd, and I'm not someone who DNFs books very often, but I almost did with that book because I just wasn't feeling it, and the one interesting character didn't appear until like 50% through the book, and I didn't really believe the relationship in this book either. Like, even when they hated each other, I couldn't understand like why. It didn't make sense to me. So that's where it's going. Husband and the Stranger. This book was actually in my library's thriller category. It's really not a thriller. It's more just like a drama between this wife and her husband, who her husband had an accident, and he treats her completely differently and acts completely differently now because of that. And there's also kind of this underlying mystery of like, how did that accident happen, kind of thing. Uh, but anyway, yeah, this wasn't exactly what it was advertised at. It wasn't a thriller, but I actually found it really interesting, and I really enjoyed it, strangely enough. And it was an audiobook too. The Glooming. I feel like I'm going to be really harsh here. I don't think it's a bad book. Like, I think we have to understand this tier list is not like an objective list. It is my own personal preferences and what I enjoyed. And I was just bored throughout this book. It was an audiobook. I did listen to the whole thing. I should probably put it in okay, but just my own level enjoyment, I feel like I should put it in that. This, however, Stags, which is where does this fit? YA thriller. I yeah, it was not a good book. It's what was the premise? They like go off to a weekend, a bunch of teenagers, and then they end up being hunted. I don't even remember exactly why I thought it was so bad, but I know it was bad. Kiss Quotient. I actually gave this book 5 stars because I didn't think there was anything wrong with it at all, and I loved it. But I haven't really ever thought about it since reading it, and so that's why I don't think it can go to the very top. Whew, this one, A Demon and His Witch. Uh, this is below bad. This is the worst thing I read last year. I had a rant about it in one of my vlogs, and basically it was a paranormal romance that romanticized sexual assault in some forms. So if I had a physical copy of that, I would throw it in the bin. We Set the Dark on Fire. YA fantasy, but it's like more political fantasy than like magical. Uh, I think I'll put it in good. I was really enjoying it for the most part, but I didn't like how things kind of wrapped up at the end, and overall it's another thing that I haven't really thought about. Stormcrow. Uh, I feel like I have to put it in okay, but it's probably like between okay and good. Like, it's a debut YA fantasy. It was okay. Yeah, again, I just didn't feel anything about it. Opals, another thing, was a audiobook I listened to. It's like a novella tied to the Raven cycle. House of Salt and Sorrows. I was actually really surprised about this one because it's advertised kind of just as a YA fantasy, but it actually has like horror vibes, which I wasn't expecting, and I really enjoyed retelling of 12 Dancing Princesses. You know what? I'm gonna put it in great. Pumpkinheads, okay. Graphic novel. It was really cute and everything, but I didn't feel like there was really a point to it, and I don't know whether that's a comment on it or the fact that I just don't really connect. Beautiful, really cute story. Well, really cute premise, but as a story, Again, I could maybe put it in good, but no. Okay. Lock Every Door. This is actually the first thriller I ever read, and I really enjoyed it. I've actually, even though I'd never read a thriller, I have watched a lot of kind of movies and TV and things with, you know, spooky premises. And because I've been exposed so much to because I've been exposed to so much of this type of media, I actually wasn't surprised by anything that really happened in here and actually guessed a bunch of stuff. But despite that, I was still so gripped to this book, and I stayed up like really late on a work night reading it, which isn't something that I usually do, and I'm not usually that invested in a book. So because of that, it's definitely great. I don't know whether I could quite put it top tier because of, again, there were those unsurprising elements, but it's a hard one. Unhoneymooners, I'm going to put in great. This is the romance I read last year that I actually haven't been able to stop thinking about, but the reason I can't put it like top tier is because the conflict near the end of this book, which is like it's like a hate to love romance, which is something that I really enjoy apparently. But yeah, there was this conflict at the end that kind of seemed to go against a lot of what had been built up in the rest of the novel. So that frustrates me too much to put it at the top. Two Dragon Society, you know what? We're putting it right up the top. It's just so adorable. It's adorable little graphic novel, originally a webcomic, and it's just so wholesome, and I love dragons, and the art is beautiful, and we're just going to put it there. Join or Die. I feel like I feel like this was good for what it was, but I don't know, you know what? This is something I read through NetGalley. It's like a YA fantasy thing, and I feel like it was good for what it was. It's just it didn't do anything new. It really, like, there were some new kind of character types, like character species, that you don't see very commonly, but overall there were also some things that were slightly problematic. I I don't know how I feel about that. Final Girls, which one was this? This was all of Riley Sager's novels have kind of a completely different vibe to them, but they all kind of feel like a movie in a lot of ways. I think Final Girls was the one that was my least favorite. I still really enjoyed it. I think I'll still put it in good, even though it was my least favorite of the ones I read because actually I don't even really remember. You know what? I was still gripped to it even though I wasn't enjoying it as much, so we'll still put it in good. Norse mythology, I'm going to put this in great. Neil Gaiman's retelling of a bunch of Norse myths. I really love mythology. I think this was well done. We're going to put it there. J.R. Ward's Duck Lover. This is a really popular paranormal romance, and it was one of the worst things I read. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a good romance. I've enjoyed some paranormal romances, but this was just ridiculous. And like I can't the like hyper masculine characters that are really kind of controlling, I couldn't get around that. And also there was a scene where she slept with some random stranger who had just walked into her house. Like, even if it's a romance, how does that on any level seem okay? And like, I don't. Anyway, I didn't like this book. Turn of the Key, another thriller. Where do I want to put this? I don't know, because I really enjoyed this book until the end. I really didn't like the ending and the way it wrapped up, and that kind of ruined it a bit for me. So I don't know. I don't know if I can put it at great because of that ending. You feel me? Oh, I don't know. Although I definitely liked it more than Final Girls though, so I don't know whether they can go on the same level. The Rabbits is a picture book, and it is my favorite picture book, that I technically reread several times last year because it's actually one that I regularly use in the classroom. It's actually an allegory for when early Europeans like came over to Australia and the impact that that had on the people who were already living there, it's the rabbits are coming over to a new land in this picture book, and I think it's accessible for all ages. I was using it last year with what, like 15-year-olds. It's just a really important picture book, and I just think it's really well done. So yes. Howl's Moving Castle, I don't think I've thought about again at all since I read it, but I did really enjoy it. It was one of the first audiobooks I'd ever listened to as an adult last year, and yeah, I think we'll put it up there. Leah on the Offbeat. I'm gonna put it in great. This is the only YA contemporary that I've really felt I connected to, because the whole friendship group dynamics and a lot of what was going on just really took me back to when I was a teenager and my friends. And I think I've got kind of the unpopular opinion here because I've seen a lot of dislike of this book, and I recognize a lot of the criticisms, and a lot of criticisms particularly because of some of the things that are said and the actions taken within this book. And while I acknowledge that, and there were definitely some not great things said and done, I still found it so relatable. I mean, at the end of the day, these characters are still kids. And if I look at my friends and I as teenagers to where we are now, like, we've all grown so much. And I think it's really realistic for kids to say things that they don't necessarily know any better of. So even though they said those things, it felt realistic to me. And like, kids have so many years left to grow and learn from those experiences. That's kind of where I'm feeling. Again, some of it was to the extreme that I probably wouldn't put it like, I don't know. I have a lot of love for this book for being that one YA contemporary that I've related to. Now I Rise is another book that I remember like nothing of. So if I don't remember anything about a book, I don't feel like I can put it above okay. This is the second book. The first one being, was it And I Darken, like a Vlad the Impaler retelling. Definitely wasn't bad. I just don't remember anything about it this far on. Stardust, I'm going to put in great. These are actually the only two Neil Gaiman things I've ever read at this point. But I actually listened to the BBC dramatization of it, and that was so good because you had all the different actors kind of acting it out. And it just felt like a fairy tale, and I love and enjoy fairy tales, and so it felt, like being a kid again and being told a fairy tale, and it was a nice experience and a really quick and easy thing to listen to. Shadow and Bone, I'm going to put it in good. I read the first book last year and I enjoyed it. Subtle Art of Not Giving a Swear Word. I don't really swear in general, whether I'm being filmed or not, but this is one of those kind of self-helpy type books, and I was finding it kind of interesting and useful to an extent, but then I wasn't really happy with some of the ways it went, and some of it seemed quite condescending and like, oh, why can't you just do better? I don't know. Raven, Edgar Allan Poe poem. I'm going to put it in great. Like, it's a classic poetry for a reason. It's just kind of eerie and lovely. Tess of the Road. How much do I remember? Okay. I don't know whether I want to put that in okay or good, to be honest. I don't think I personally connected to it that much, but like, I still remember it and definitely don't dislike it. So I guess we'll put it there at the moment. Basilisk Rising, Suicide Squad volume, a comic, graphic novel, etc. I love Harley, but this was just okay. I don't remember anything that happened in it. Didn't have particularly positive feelings while reading it. Stephen King's It. I'm gonna leave that till last because I have no idea. Like, I don't want to start trying to think about that right now. Big Magic. This is another one of those like self-helpy type books. This is all about creativity, and harnessing your creativity. I really enjoyed some of it, and I definitely enjoyed listening to it but I just really struggled with some of the kind of spirituality of it. I think I'll still put it in good. I know a lot of people have connected to it much more than I have too. Joined up thinking this was good for what it was. This is a book that kind of gives you a series of facts and things, and they all kind of join up. Like it's a really interesting premise. So, they'll say, this is a thing that happened here. This is related to this other thing that's happened in another part of the world that you wouldn't have necessarily made that connection. So it's basically just a series of facts that are loosely connected, a bit like if you've ever done like the Wikipedia, what's it, like the 7 circles of connection, or those things where everything's kind of connected in one way or another, and each chapter of this kind of circles of it back eventually to the facts and stories they started with. So it was just an interesting thing for what it was. Nevernight, the entire Nevernight series, I'm going to chuck up the top. Overall, I liked Nevernight the most out of the 3, but I still loved that whole trilogy like a lot, and I really liked the characters and all of the things that were going on. So that's what's going up there. Fight Like a Girl. I do really like listening to nonfiction, especially when it's read by the author. I think it can be really interesting. I listened to 2 of these kind of feminist books last year. I think Fight Like a Girl was the one I liked the most, and then there was Speaking Out by Tara Moss, which I don't think I liked as much. I think these type of things, especially if it's a world you kind of haven't delved much into previously, they're definitely things you should visit and you should read. As someone who's kind of been exposed to a lot of feminist media for a long time, there's a lot of repetitive stuff in these type of books, but I think they're still quite valuable. Where are we? Guinevere Deception. I only gave this 2 stars because like nothing really happened, and I was kind of bored, and I only finished it because it was kind of easy and not too long of a book. So putting it in bad seems harsh, but I don't know if I can even consider it okay. Ugh. I don't know, that seems really harsh. But you know what? We're going to leave it there for the moment. Gotham Academy was good. This is the first volume of graphic novel series. It's kind of just it was cute and spooky. Nothing probably amazing in that first volume from what I remember, but it was another beautifully illustrated comic, and I did really like the story. I should continue that at some point. Kingdom of Ash. I don't know how I feel about this. I kind of only read Kingdom of Ash because I felt obligated to finish the Throne of Glass series at this point, but like I enjoyed some things that were going on. I really didn't like others. So I don't think I would put it in bad necessarily, even though I skimmed a lot of it. I think it was okay because there were still those glimpses of things that I enjoyed and of like the characters that I had grown attached to, even though I feel like the series went downhill several books ago. Last Time I Lied. So of the 3 Riley sagas, one is Lock Every Door kind of gives me like American Horror Story hotel vibes, to be completely honest. Final Girls is that kind of typical horror of the Final Girls. Last Time I Lied is she goes to a camp and is trying to uncover things that happened. I didn't like this as much as Lock Every Door. I think I'm still going to put it in great because, yeah, I think we'll still put it up there. I do really enjoy these horrors, and I'm really looking forward to. There's Sega's coming out with one of these thrillers this year. I think I can't remember what it's called. I think is it a haunted house type one or something? But basically, any thriller that Sega comes out with at this point, I think I'm going to read because I did really enjoy them. Monstrous! I'm chucking it up the top. Fantasy, horror, graphic novel. I've only read the first one at this point. Shame on me, but I loved it. It was a lot more kind of dark and graphic than I was expecting, but I loved that. So it's going up amongst those. Totally Anastasia, basically my favorite things I read. Radio Silence, I'm putting it in okay. I can appreciate why people like this so much, but now me as a 27-year-old woman is finding it harder and harder to relate to YA contemporary, which isn't something I necessarily related to ever a huge amount because I've always preferred kind of fantasy and things like that. So I can't really put it above okay for my, yeah. Simon versus the Homo sapiens. Now, as much as I had good things to say about Leah and the Offbeat, I didn't like this one. I think part of that, like, one was I didn't connect to it as much. This, obviously, I have never been a young gay boy. But beyond that, I also didn't really enjoy the email format. Uh, I didn't really like that either. But I don't know if I'd put it in bad necessarily. That seems too harsh. So maybe I'll put it in okay. But see, that it makes this seem harsh too. Maybe I'll just put that in okay. This was definitely bad. These were definitely bad. Twilight's definitely bad. The gloaming maybe shouldn't go in bad. That's just because I was personally bored by it. That seems harsh. But anyway. Stephen King's It. Now, I have a really hard time with this one because my thoughts are all over the place. It was the first book that I ever like annotated and tabbed properly. So I have a lot of fond feelings for it because of that, and I really enjoyed that experience. And there's a lot of, you know, kind of quotable sections, and Stephen King's writing I do enjoy, and there was a lot of things I liked. I love the movies, and it was really interesting to see how all of that had been adapted. But then there were also a few things in this book that made me really uncomfortable, like the scene that everyone talks about, just like why does that exist? But also the way women are written about, and even the way like a female child is written about, and just some of the things. So it makes me feel like I don't. It also felt too long. So I think I'm gonna chuck it in okay. Like there are just a few things that if they were taken out, it would definitely be good, possibly even great if it wasn't so long. But for my mixed feelings, I don't feel like I could put it above that. Let's see. Let's double check my rankings here because that should be everything. So my favorite things I read: Kings of the Wild, definitely. Tea Dragon Society, definitely love that. The Rabbits, a reread that I will continue rereading and continue using in classrooms. Good stuff. Nevernight Trilogy, yes. Monstrous, yes. Spellslinger. Spellslinger I want to reread because I feel like if I enjoyed it as much on a reread, then I would bump it up. But at this stage, I think I'll leave it there. Kiss Quotient, again, I 5-starred it, but I haven't thought about it since, so I can't bump it up. House of Salt and Sorrows, I did really like that for what it was. Didn't think it was necessarily perfect. I'll leave it there. Lock Every Door, again, I feel like the unsurprisingness of it for me personally makes me feel like I can't bump it up. Honey Honeymooners, again, that one thing at the end bothered me. Leah on the Offbeat, not perfect, but I personally connect to it, so I'm tempted to bump it up just for my personal connection, but again, it's one of those things that maybe I'd leave it to a reread to decide. Norse Mythology and Stardust, really enjoyed those. I'll leave them there. The Raven, I like that poem. Fight Like a Girl. Some of the things I've read and listened to kind of meld together a bit, so it's hard for me to kind of distinguish between these two feminist books that I listened to be completely honest, especially since it was kind of earlier in the year, but I think I'll leave it there. And the other Saga, definitely didn't like it as much as Lock Every Door, but I'll still leave it up there. Clean Sweeps, you know what, I'm going to put it to great. I really enjoy Ilona Andrews for what I've read of them so far, and I need to keep reading. Asking the Answer, I'll leave it in good. Lady Midnight, yeah, I'll leave it there. Scythe, yeah. Yeah, I think we'll leave these here. Nothing. Again, Test of the Road. Yeah, it can still stay in good. I think these are all fairly okay where they are. Again, things that I just didn't enjoy or connect to, I think they all pretty much deserve to be there. Again, these are all things that weren't bad, but I just personally didn't connect to them or don't remember them or had a little bit of a problem with, which stops me from thinking they were good necessarily in my eyes. Bad, Twilight is definitely trash. What were you thinking, 14-year-old Stassi? Cruel Prince, that seems harsh to put it in bad. I think I gave it like a 2.5. You know what? I'm leaving it in bad because they're all horrible people. Carry on. The fact that I almost DNF'd it means that I can't put it anywhere higher than that, I feel. And the gloaming, that seems really harsh, but that's just because of how bored I was, which also makes me think that I should potentially put Guinevere Deception down. But that, ugh. I don't know about those two. Those two feel like they need their category of their own, where they're probably not that bad. I just personally wasn't that interested or thought they were too slow for my tastes. Stags is bad. That was definitely bad. Dark Level was definitely bad. So I think we can leave that list as it is. So there we go. There's my ranking of what I read in 2019. I could go through and try and like push them to like exactly where I rank each one within it. Like, yeah, I feel like that's going to. We probably don't need to do that right now. So for that, we'll leave that where it is. Yeah.
So that is everything, I guess. Hope you're all staying safe. What did you think of some of these books, and what do you think of my rankings, or where would you place things? And Starzy out.